already know that this team is definitely a contender to go deep, not just domestically, but internationally as well. So this should just be a treat to behold. Some absolute masterclasses on display tonight. And we will see who gets the last laugh, whether it's BLG or whether it's Elk.
So it looks like Weibo had first selection, opting to pick first here in game number 1. BLG opting for blue side. So we're going to see that reverse from your traditional pick ban phase once again. But Weibo going to prioritize getting an early pick in the first game of a fearless set. We're seeing Malphite, Jace, Rumble, the typical champions being taken away, as well as that Karma, which could be played down in the bot lane for On.
Yeah, opting for the first pick is very interesting. I perhaps wonder if it's because it's the first game of the Fearless, meaning that no matter what, even with 6 champions banned out, there will just be a 7th champ who is really strong. And in this case, Nico being immediately snapped up. That is one of the most prominent supports down there in the bot lane. I would say Nico, Karma, and Bard are like the most S tier supports right now, just with how much range, how much poke, how much utility they have to offer. Karma's out, so that would mean that perhaps one of the better answers left could be the Bard. But again, you can take the Varus here, a really strong laning champion. You can pair that with pretty much anything that has decent laning potential, and you'll be completely fine down there versus the Nico. It just means that the Nico will be a pretty huge threat come the mid game with the team fighting potential it offers with that Pop Blossom.
Talked a lot about Elk and Weibo, but you know, when you think about Xiaohu and what he was able to do last year in 2025, he's not the only piece from Weibo that is making its return to 2026. Erha in the support position played Split 2 with this roster before getting benched for Crisp at the start of Split 3. Bit of a younger support going through the LDL system. Nico was his best champion though throughout the season, so no surprise to see them prioritize that heavily in this pick ban phase. Gonna get their new support onto something comfortable up against Viper and On. It'll be Varus and Wukong locked in here for BLG. We'll see what Weibo respond with here. Likely a bot and a jungler to the boot.
Yeah, it's really interesting. We get to see Viper on the Varus. That has been in contention for one of the very best picks on the patch. So he's going to have all the agency in the world to really prove himself down there, to really oppress his opponents and just be that effective with the piercing arrows, with the poke, with the potential. We're very likely to see the Arcane Comet Varus. I'd be surprised if we saw anything else, no matter what they draft, just because that's sort of their main reason you're first picking this champ. And it's interesting we see the Yunara paired alongside the Nico. Traditionally, I feel like you want to have some sort of a enchanter with the Yunara, so you can have, you know, more on-hit power and, you know, more overall DPM. But, you know, with the Nico, that is just going to help you get through the laning phase, which perhaps is Yunara's one of her weak points, is that it can be hard to lane. So if you take that strong point from Nico, use it to counteract Yunara's weak point, it just means you're going to be able to get one of this really prominent S tier 80 carries to the mid game, where maybe with that accelerated gold with the new bot lane quest, you're going to be able to get to those 3-4 items. And that's really where the Yunara should outshine the Varus, is probably at like the 4 item point, once you have your Infinity Edge and everything else. So we'll see if that's Weibo's approach here. And we see the other champs coming in. We saw that Shun wanted to go for perhaps the Ambessa, but it looks like Weibo is going to end up taking that since Shun went for the Wukong.
That could be flexed into the jungle or the top lane, of course. The Ambessa, honestly, more in the jungle at this point in the meta, but certainly Zika has a lot of experience on that champion throughout 2025 as well. As we get into the second phase of bans, waiting for mid laners to be selected, as well as potentially jungle or top lane here on Weibo's side specifically. What will Knight play in his return to 2025? The Akali was something that he popped off in the last game of the Grand Finals that BLG played. But not going to get it here, as they're actually banning it away from Xiaohu.
Yeah, so I'm trying to keep up here with the new format in terms of the red team getting the first pick. So that should mean that the blue team is going to get the last pick.
Yep.
And that means you could probably give that to Knight. I mean, you could also give it to Bin. It's going to be really interesting. There is a lot of mid laners who are still in. I mean, Azir is still open. Talia is still open. Syndra is really strong on this patch. I mean, Ahri is known for being probably the best, or sorry, Knight is probably known for being the best Ahri in the world. So that's definitely something to keep your eye on. We see that they're actually banning away Akali as the side of BLG, which could mean that they're looking for one of those more immobile champs like the Syndra, who could be pretty weak. I know that there has been this narrative that Knight is not as good on the Azir as everything else. you know, his champion pool. He's pretty much like top of the league at like every single champ. But it's just that as a Azir, he's maybe only like an 8 or 9 out of 10 instead of that 10 out of 10. So we'll see if he wants to go for something like that. It looks like they do ban out his Syndra now that Akali is off the table. So we'll see who they get the last pick to here, if it's going to be Bin or it's going to be Knight.
I'd imagine saving it for Bin would make sense here, just because you don't know exactly where that Ebessa is going at the moment, and there's a decent amount of safe blinds that Knight could go for. Gonna lock in the Azir here in this game. We saw that have some pretty good effect with Anyone's Legend when they picked it alongside Hope's Varus, so a combo that worked well in our second series of the day. Gonna try to make some impact in the third. This would be a fun counter to it though here, Foles. The LeBlanc getting locked in by Xiaohu, so not something that we typically see from him, at least at this stage in his career on the Assassin, but gonna have a good matchup into Knight's Azir.
Yeah, and personally, as the resident Azir player, you just really dislike playing against LeBlanc. I mean, the thing is, as Azir, you do have more survivability and counterplay than most sort of mages do. Like, for example, Orianna or, you know, even Syndra can be kind of annoying. But at least as Azir, you have the Shifting Sands, which does give you a shield. You are kind of able to go backwards and evade some of those ethereal chains. But, I mean, LeBlanc just does have better trading patterns. So, and of course it's Xiaohu, one of the best LeBlancs. I mean, he has played this champion across his career. That should mean that LeBlanc is going to win out in the early stages. And the thing with this matchup, though, is you really do need to build a sizable lead as LeBlanc. Like, you want to have, like, probably at least like a 400 gold lead by, like, the 15-minute mark, where you're kind of forcing this Azir into some bad recalls. And honestly, it all comes down to just hitting those chains. And if Knight is able to sort of stifle that, to sort of shore up that weakness, then his champion in the mid game is pretty much simply just better. So if the Azir can make it to minute 20 without too much of a trouble, then I would say advantage BLG. Whereas if Xiaohu is able to set this Azir behind, that could really put them in the driver's seat to take this game the direction they want it to go.
Yeah, I know there's been a lot of questions about how good of a player Xiaohu really has been over these last few months. Certainly not the best mid laner in the world like we saw him in the RNG days, even the Weibo days earlier on when he first joined the team back in 2023, but still definitely a player to be feared, especially on a champion that has a good matchup into Azir like this LeBlanc. If he can get ahead, I actually really like Weibo's team comp. A lot of dive, a lot of burst that can really counter some of these champions that BLG have locked in, like an immobile poke Varus, like a Zehen. So potentially good looks here for Weibo Gaming to go up against BLG in BLG's first matchup of the 2026 season. These two teams met in the Demacia Cup, did not have much success back then. We've seen Weibo bounce back. Now will BLG be able to do the same? We'll find out as we're on to the Rift for game number 1.
Yeah, and my eyebrows are just immediately raised as we see that Xiaohu opts for the Flash Ignite here. We did touch on this in the previous series, that as mid laners, especially with these empowered recalls and with the home guards and with the speed of the game, you know, you are able to skip out on the teleport a little bit in today's meta, but it's just so aggressive seeing that Xiaohu has the Electrocute, the Sudden Impact, the Scorch, and the Ignite. So he has everything he possibly can to do maximum damage in this early game tonight. So unfortunately for him, he did get chunked out a little bit with that W over the wall, trying to get a cheeky ward on the Raptors. I suppose BLG was prepared for that. They did their homework. And let's just see if Knight is still able to manage this laning phase. Another point in the draft to mention being that they decided to send that Ambessa blind up into the top lane to take the Jarvan, which is pretty interesting. And Bin is going to be on that counter pick Zhen. I do believe this matchup is somewhat even, perhaps a little bit Zhen favored. But that is one of the best champions. Typically, whenever there's a new champion introduced into the game, it's just pretty much better than everything that came out before it. So we'll see if that's the case for Bin up there today.
Even against a newer champion in Ambessa herself, right? She's only in the game for a couple years too, but Bin on the Zhen. Did not see too much success from Zhen in our last game from Sobero. Maybe Bin will be able to provide a little bit of a higher impact this time around. We'll say though, maybe a tougher composition to play the champion against when you look at all the dive and the assassination possibilities here on Weibo's side. Bin might have a bit of a tough time getting those stacks, getting to the revive, unless he gets significantly far ahead in this laning phase.
Yeah, another similar story where the Varus is just forcing the enemy into an early recall. This one from Elk does seem to be a lot more of a reasonable recall timing than it was for Photic in the last series. We see Erha, he's trying to show that he belongs in this series right now with the way he's moving. You like to see that. Another interesting thing to touch on is with the introduction of the new quests. You know, you could see in the previous season that if Yunara was really chunked out there, technically it would actually be a bit too early right now, but you could just run top or mid, but not anymore. It's so inefficient to not run to your primary lane. As top, you want to stay top. As mid, you want to stay mid. And as bot, you want to stay bot because you generate more stacks of the quest.
Ooh, Xiaohu going for an aggressive plan tonight, landing the flash chain, and Jiejie comes in as well. That's the mid jungle for Weibo, picking up first blood on Knight's return to the LPL in 2026.
Wow, and Knight's first game finally getting to perform and play alongside of his roster as intended, which he didn't get to in the Demacia Cup, just kind of taking a breather. He gets punished there, and that's exactly why, as the LeBlanc, you go all those early game runes, you take the Flash Ignite, you just have maximum kill threat onto Knight here. Unfortunately, as soon as this chain lands, you are just dead. You need to have a bit of a better flash here.
Yeah, Knight just thought that he would be able to get out of range, unable to do so. Perfectly chained crowd control, and Jiejie was in the right place at the right time to get Weibo on the board first.
Yeah, so Jiejie does end up picking up the first blood. Keep in mind, in the new season, the first blood is worth a little bit more. You do get that extra 100 gold. So that's where that pretty much that 400 gold lead is coming from for Jiejie right now. But again, I want to say super well played by Xiaohu. He does sort of an E flash there after the distortion. It's pretty impossible to react to. You see that Knight tried to react to that, but it is very difficult. Xiaohu kind of gave Knight almost no counterplay to that death right there. And I suppose that's kind of what they had in mind for this draft. Pick the LeBlanc, play super aggressive, use the Jarvan alongside it, and they've just done exactly that, netting themselves an early game advantage.
So Jiejie, of course, had a lot of questions about his performance in 2025, was on IG to start off the year, ended up getting benched for Wei during Split 3, moves over to FPX for a little bit, doesn't find a lot of success there. Now on Weibo, a new team, a new approach, so far having a good set of early game skirmishes. And so off to a good start to this one. We'll see how the jungle matchup continues to unfold, as Shun was another player who had, I would say, a really good 2025, albeit not on a very successful team in JDG. But BLG was the team that really needed a jungler all year long. They finally get him back after, losing Wei halfway through the season. Now they get Shun back, who was a big part of their 2024 season as well.
Yeah, we see a few interesting things unfolding here. We're going to get to see this again. This is how the nature of the matchup is. You just want to be pressing
back
E.
into the tower, and we'll be able to get the solo kill as the Weibo mid laner gets punished heavily. But now in the bottom lane, it's Elk and Erha getting revenge on Elk's former bot lane counterpart, as On will go down on a 2v2 kill himself. We get skirmishing on the top side as well, as Bin's going in onto Zika, looking for a sort of play. Ultimate's already been popped. The mana is very low on Bin's side, and Zika's on the wrong side of the map. Gonna have to escape underneath the Tri-Brush and run back to safety on his own.
Yeah, I really underestimated the kill threat onto Xiaohu there. I was just going to touch on that's typically the nature of the matchup. Whenever you're playing Azir into LeBlanc, you're pretty much forced to use E to go forwards. Every time LeBlanc distortions in, you kind of have to shifting sands in for that shield, for that trade, and we see here, he does have the Cataclysm, but he doesn't want to expend it onto the Nautilus there. But that's the main problem with this matchup is, well, let's take a look here. If Azir's allowed to do this, then it's a completely fine matchup, which is why you want to be hovering mid at all times with Jarvan or Nico. Because, again, the only way Azir can match these trades is by Eing forward, and you can immediately punish that when Azir has no flash if the Jarvan or the Nico's there. However, Knight playing super well. He knew he was able to do that there, casting the Emperor's Divide backwards, using the tower as an assist mechanism to take out Xiaohu and take back his spot in this game.
Now we see down in the bottom lane a dive about to happen as Shun goes in with the Cyclone onto Elk. Chain of Corruption does not connect, and Viper will go down to the turret, but he will get another kill in response. Xiaohu, though, comes in, forces Shun to flash away as well, but Erha lands a Tangle Barbs of his own with a nice flash to pick up a double kill for Xiaohu, and it's 5-2 to Weibo Gaming in the early game of this first matchup.
Man, and that is exactly what Xiaohu needed to undo his mistake. He's completely well and away back into this game. And you want to know why that happened, Grapes? I think it's because the tower ranges are just slightly longer now. It's so much harder to drop the tower aggro. There is no way Viper was anticipating to take this additional shot right here. He flashes out, but he's still in the tower range, and he dies. I mean, maybe that one was not even that far out of the range, but the towers, they are unrelenting this season, Grapes. They are just going to shoot you even if you think you're out of the range. And this is a huge catastrophic error here for BLG. Xiaohu's going to be completely online all over again. And now Viper losing his flash and losing out on that play when they had the numbers advantage. Really well played as Xiaohu to come counter that play.
Exactly what you said. Get Xiaohu ahead, and all of a sudden Weibo are going to be looking pretty good in this game. Now the LeBlanc sitting at 2-1-1, down in CS, but has 4 stacks on the Dark Seal as well. Weibo Gaming able to pick up these Void Grubs, now look potentially for a play on to Bin. Has the ultimate at his disposal, but gonna get hit up with the public execution before he can even proc an R of his own. Erha the one to land the final blow, and Weibo are dominating the Rift here in game 1.
Wow, it looks like BLG is just not quite ready for their first game of the LPL regular season. Their performances across the board so far have not been up to par. I mean, even Knight's kill against Xiaohu, I'm not even so sure if that was Knight playing well as it was Xiaohu playing poorly. We just need to see BLG playing at the level that they're supposed to be. I mean, Bin not even getting the ulti buffer off there. He probably still would have died, but Shun was behind him. It could have mattered. And again, that misplay on the dive there from BLG, this is the type of stuff that can really come back to cost you. We're already seeing a practical 2K gold lead here for the side of Weibo. And the only champion who even has some sort of a decent footing right now is the Azir, which, to speak a silver lining, that's the kind of champion that you want it to be. If there's any champion that you want to have an advantage to kind of carry your team back into the game, Azir does have the most amount of agency possible to do so. So, I mean, at this point, we're all eggs in the Knight basket, Grapes.
Yeah, and you know what? He's made the most out of what is not the best situation for himself. Blinding the Azir, getting countered, and losing his early, advantage by getting killed by Xiaohu and Jiejie before 6. They've been able to get a kill back in response, get a bit of a CS lead, and still put himself in a position to succeed if we do get to some of these later game team fights in a relatively even state. However, it is not even right now in terms of the gold department, as Weibo are now up 2,000 and now have also an opportunity to go towards the second dragon of the game. You see Jiejie already maneuvering towards it, vision being cleared around it, and also they're going to cancel this back of on, which is going to prevent that tempo from being fully in store for BLG.
Yeah, I mean, as the support, you probably want to get some more wards here from the shop. You want to be able to light up the map a little bit more, and even getting interrupted there is just going to prevent him from having the tempo to do that. He does have the depth charge here, the Nautilus ultimate. That is one of the best ways to kill LeBlanc because there's just almost no way to lock that champion down. I remember when LeBlanc was more prominent in the meta, you would see Nautilus and Maokai as like the 2 main responses, just being those point and click CCs to help catch that LeBlanc. So we'll see if Xiaohu is able to maintain those Dark Seal stacks he currently has. And we'll see if Weibo, with this 2K gold lead, is going to be able to push their advantage anymore. They did get the second Drake, but they're going to want to get a bit more. Remember, this Azir champion, once it's about minute 20, once he has his couple items, he's just going to be super effective, more effective than the LeBlanc. So we're going to want to see them push the advantage any way they can.
Yeah, because, again, even though there's some good scaling on Weibo's side in the Yunara, in, an Mbessa here for Zika, a lot of what BLG are able to do well is play drawn-out team fights. And so what Weibo needs to do is be strong enough where they could just one-shot somebody like Bin before he gets the revive, somebody like Knight before he gets to have that full lethal tempo procced. And they're in a good position to do so right now, but they have to keep building on those leads, keep looking to find plays, potentially once again here in the mid lane. And Erha has made his way over to try and go for a play on tonight. And Jiejie is in the area as well, but they just forced Knight to use the shifting sands back as he's playing very defensive at this stage in the game.
Yeah, so something we're noticing here is the quests coming in. For at first it was Zika, and then it came in for Knight, and both of those are mattering quite a bit. Let's see if this is more than just a Nautilus Assault. Unfortunately, it's a Nautilus Assault down the drain. Jiejie just buys some space, it doesn't matter. But I really like what Zika did there. As soon as he got that top lane quest complete, he teleported back with the upgraded teleport, which gives him a 30% max HP shield. And he used that shield to all of his advantage.
Ooh,
Meanwhile,
is so low. Meanwhile, they got a fight here in the mid lane as the Pop Blossom goes on, and the Nautilus is immediately bursted down. However, Shun goes in with the Cyclone and makes it a trade at least of the support champions, being able to survive up in the top side as well as Zika unable to complete the dive up on the top side of the map. You can see both top laners using their ultis in that exchange, and now Bin will be able to get his teleport back to lane on his own as well.
yeah, quite surprisingly here, Bin is able to be in a completely perfectly fine spot. He completes his own quest. Now he's going to have that 30-second huge shield as well, which probably won't matter nearly as much, but he was able to get back with the Trinity Force. Elk ulting in. It's answered by the ult from Viper there. That was pretty aggressive. But yeah, all the quests coming in for BLG so far. I really like to see. Let's take a look at these flash ults from these players here.
I wonder if Zika, or if Bin was able to somehow dodge the public execution with the ultimate of his own. Let's see. Yeah, he buffers it with the unstoppable, and that was enough to, I guess, allow him to escape. Nicely done by Bin.
Yeah, then Bin throws out the W, trying to keep Zika under the tower. He was having none of that. Responded with a flash of his own, so that's both of the long cooldowns going to be on CD here for the top laners. And we see that Knight here already opting for those the Merc Treads, which again in this season as the mid laners, you want to buy the boots. You pretty much always want to have your boots upgraded by the time you complete your quest because it's just so much free value. And him having these chain laced crushers every time that Xiaohu is going for a trade on tonight, he's just going to have like a 200 magic damage shield. It's just going to make him that much harder to punch through. And, you know, we saw that Xiaohu itemizing and opting for all of this, you know, early game power with the runes. You know, he's got the Hextech Alternator into the Ludens. He's got the Dark Seal stacks, even the Ignite. Those chain lace crushers in just being one item, Grapes, is going to help thwart all of that power pretty much. He's just going to be so much tankier as Azir here, so it's going to be really hard to take him out.
Yeah, you can already see a little bit of the value of that mid lane quest in Knight's hands, going for the upgraded Merc Treads, as you say, and not going to be able to be taken down as easily. And speaking of taken down, Zika going to be in some trouble here as the Grim Deliverance goes forward for Bin, who's playing very aggressively right now. Lands the Q2, knows he has the revive, and that is why he's going for an aggressive play like this, waiting for Shun to come in and finish the job. Goes in with the Cyclone. Zika doesn't hit the ulti, but is able to gather enough distance to escape underneath his tier 2 turret.
Yeah, and the Knight TPing in here, this is actually really interesting. In the previous seasons, at this being minute 15, this tower would just immediately die with no plates. But the way it works is there's these passive on the turrets called Bulwark, which means the more characters near the tower, the tankier they are. And so that's why, even though you have 3 champions hitting the tower, it just takes that long to take it out because the tower is just even tankier. Wow. So they finally do punch through it, but that's a pretty big difference on this patch compared to the previous one. It's just how long it took them to take that tower out. So well played from Zika. He's able to survive from Shun's ulti there and Bin's aggression, but both the towers are traded here in the side lanes.
As well as these neutral objectives, most importantly for Weibo, this is going to be Mountain Soul Point secured for themselves. Think about the burst ability that they already have in their kits. It's going to be harder for burst to go the opposite way. Of course, if they're able to pick up some of these extra resistances. So 1,500 gold lead here for Weibo. It's dwindled slightly over the past few minutes, but they are still in a good position in this first game against BLG, given that they have this soul point. Up to the top lane, a little bit of a play on to Zika, who does not have that public execution at his disposal, and so Shun will be able to take him down with the help of Knight. Scoop and score here for BLG, but it'll come at a big cost as Xiaohu will come in and finish off the kill onto the Wukong with his Ignite. And now Knight's going to be in trouble as well as Erha lands the Pop Blossom, and Weibo perfectly punished the BLG mid-jungle duo.
Yeah, it looked like the BLG mid-jungle duo there had a really good look there onto Zika, using the Emperor's Divide, knowing that Zika didn't have the ulti of his own to help get to the other side of it. That's the thing with Ambessa. You have all the dashes in the world, but you can't dash over walls. Guess what? The Emperor's Divide is a wall, so Knight created that terrain to trap Zika, but unfortunately for BLG, the response out of Xiaohu and Erha was just so beautiful. Look, you see Zika, he just can't get around them. He's just trapped with all these dashes. There's nothing they can do. But this response was so quick, was so clean. I love it. He goes in, he ignites the Wukong, makes sure he dies, and beautiful. He's seeing his ear. Before that passive, Disc of the Sun is going to even matter. That's a 2-for-1 trade, and that's definitely favorable for Weibo Gaming.
So Weibo getting back into the driver's seat after that play. Xiaohu now at 3-1-3, picks up the Luden's Echo, working towards that second item as well. Going to be in a really good position for an eventual soul fight if he's able to finish off, that second item, have that Dark Steel continue to stack as well. Overall, Weibo Gaming, again, a lot of people expected BLG to come away and be that immediate favorite here into the LPL with the addition of Viper, but as you said, Foles, some of the growing pains that we might have expected from them, not fully online just yet. And again, just a testament to how impressive Weibo have been themselves, at least in the early part of the 2026 season.
Yeah, we see that there's technically a 7 gold lead, make it 8 for Knight, but across the board, it's gold leads for Weibo. They're just simply playing better. We have a bit of a fight here.
Look at Xiaohu going for a big play onto Viper, chunks him to half HP, but now gonna have to play some fancy footwork, and he's able to escape and just break BLG's ankles. Knight goes in with the Emperor's Divide, and Xiaohu says, all right, I'll see you later, distorts right back to his team.
Now, honestly, I don't really hate to say it. I think this is why people have been criticizing Knight's Azir. He's one of the best mid laners in the world. We literally addressed the fact that he's the most winningest player in the history of the LPL. But for some reason, when it comes to Knight, he just can't seem to pilot the Azir to the same level to which he can on every other mid lane champ. And that's just such a random mistake. Like, there's no reason to be ulting a LeBlanc who has a free distortion escape. It doesn't tend to matter all that much here, but I would really say that does kind of speak volumes to his ability on this champion. And he was the one with the gold lead. He's supposed to be the one shining hope that there is here in this game state right now for BLG. And if that's what you're putting your hope into, you're gonna want to have a little more optimism than that.
Yeah, I mean, Shun's made some nice plays so far. We're still waiting to see what Bin is going to look like in a full 5v5 team fight on the Sehen, but it's going to take a little bit more time for BLG to scale it into a position where they're feeling really comfortable. And Foles, I don't know if they're going to have that time, because you take a look at the top left of your screen, it's 1 minute and 15 seconds until a potential Mountain Soul for Weibo. So that is going to be a timer that BLG are going to be forced into a fight. We see the Luden's Echo now completed, so on top of the Shadow Flame, I should say, for Xiaohu, so he's in a really powerful position, as well as Elk now at 2 items, a Proto Belt for Erha. This is exactly where Weibo want to be at this point in the game. Yeah,
and last I checked, Graves, it's apparently about a 90% win rate if you secure a Mountain Soul in any given League of Legends game. So if Weibo is going to be able to do that, that should pretty much just be all she wrote. So a whole game hangs in the balance right now for BLG. If they're able to control this terrain, if they're able to secure themselves this Drake, they must, by any means necessary, do so, or they're completely going to be gone, done, and dusted.
So you see Knight popping the Sun Disc right now, helping BLG generate some mid lane prio. We have Xiaohu pushing on the bottom lane, going to have really good positioning for a potential team fight. We also see Erha hovering, waiting as that melee minion, trying to generate as little attention to himself as possible, as Xiaohu does get spotted due to that risk scuttler being taken down in the bot side jungle, as Weibo are able to take down the Sun Disc, and the Dragon has spawned. Battle lines soon to be drawn, and Weibo and BLG soon to duke things out. See Erha still hovering around in that minion form, waiting for the perfect time to strike.
Yeah, you just have to control this area as much as you possibly can as the side of BLG, but it's so difficult with the champions Weibo has at any given moment. They could find themselves an entry point with the likes of the Nico ult, with the likes of Xiaohu going for a huge chunk onto one of the carries. They just have to keep preying on these mid waves and finding a way to start up this Drake for themselves, because if they keep dancing, Weibo's gonna have it.
Ooh, Dredgeline connects here onto the Jarvan. Jiejie forced to flash away after utilizing the Cataclysm. Erha has the Pop Blossom, but only finds Shun, who's able to flash away himself. Xiaohu never really got a chance to get into the backline. He has to get himself out of there himself. And that means that BLG able to survive the initial assault of Weibo, with Zika and Elk now pushing down the mid lane to try to get some chip damage onto the tier 1 turret. Shun has started up this dragon, and it should be pretty easy for BLG to finish it off and deny the soul. But Jiejie still waiting,
50-50.
still hunting to try to go for a bit of a steal. He does have his smite. Into the pit they go. Here's the big burst. Here's the play. Elkguard, he gets the kill on the On, and it's the soul not secured by the side of Weibo. Grim Deliverance in here for Bin, and Knight's flashing over the wall to try to finish off some kills on the Weibo side. Bin flashes in, gets the kill onto Zika, but on the backside of things, it's Elk picking one back up in response. Xiaohu and Erha still alive. It's still a 2v2 with them against Knight and Xiaohu, but Knight now feeling confident enough to flash forward, dash in onto Xiaohu, and allow the Weibo mid laner to flee. BLG deny the soul, and they'll win the team fight on top of it. It's a 3-for-3 overall.
And this is what makes the best teams in the world great, is when they're able to do the most clutch possible things that they can. I mean, you have to understand, there was about a 50% chance they just completely lost the whole game there. If Weibo is able to secure this soul, this fight transpires so differently. That's like an extra 1,500 HP worth of shields they would have gotten, and you can only imagine the difference that would have made. But not only does Shun step up and secure the smite, the rest of BLG clutches up in ways of their own. Every single member of BLG was able to clutch this up. Even though Viper does get taken out here in the backside of this fight, BLG has the last laugh, and they needed to clutch this, and they did so. That's what makes the good teams great.
And a big step up for Bin in that team fight as well. Finally getting online, finding a perfect knock-up here. And just a really good engage overall on that Zehen to take Jiejie down and start off what ended up being a pretty good fight for BLG overall. It was a 3-for-3, but their solo laners remained alive, with only the support for Weibo still left standing alongside Xiaohu. So, at this point of the game, not much honestly has changed, Fulls. It's just the dragon and a couple of kills being kind of swapped back and forth. We're still fully waiting for a soul to be secured, and neither side won as definitive of a team fight that was necessary for them to take full control of the game.
Now, I know that on the scoreboard, it doesn't seem to me that BLG and Weibo here, with the goal difference and such, that much has changed, but I would say that actually quite a lot has. Just given that the nature of these compositions, the LeBlanc just gets so outscaled. For example, the power of the Nico as well is obviously much more effective in the early game when you're having the flash as well. And, you know, these champions, the later the game goes on, the less useful they become, whereas that is not the same
Look
story.
at On! Was that blind on the Xiaohu? Oh my goodness! Allowing for Shun to go in and finish off a big shutdown on the star player of Weibo. That is a massive play from BLG's support, and it's going to allow them to start up this Baron Nashor in a 4v5.
Yeah, that's exactly what BLG needed here, and they just call everything onto this Baron. Weibo's not going to be happy about this.
Jiejie looking to try to hunt his way back into the pit. Issues the Cataclysm. They're going to go for the full-on fight instead. Knight unable to find anybody here with the Emperor's Divide, and Zika wreaking havoc on the backline, and Viper in some trouble with the Public Execution going on top of him. Zika almost able to finish off the kill, and he will be able to do so. And on the backside of things, it's Elk finishing off the rest of Bilibili Gaming. It's his former team, and Elk is here with a vengeance. Only Bin is left alive on BLG's side, but he's just revived and still very, very healthy in this situation. Healing up enough, but it will not be enough for them to win the fight. It's Elk finishing off the ace, and Weibo going over to the Baron themselves.
Yeah, I think BLG's position there was completely winning. And I just think that the way they played it was way too scuffed. I don't think that was the look they wanted. I think Knight completely shuffled in, pretty much hit nobody, and was stuck in a stasis where he's just met by Elk, who just beams him down the second he comes. What the heck is on for even finding that hook in the first place? He completely put them in a spot where they could take the game away into their hands. But I don't know exactly what happened here, but I do think that it was probably Knight who made the biggest error here. I'm going to have to see this again.
Ulti. Yeah, it's not the best usage of the Emperor's Divide, if I do say so myself. It starts off with Jiejie going in, and then Knight just completely whiffs, and Elk is able to remain untouched and do a ton of damage in this team fight.
Yeah, and that is, you know, the good teams giveth and they taketh, and unfortunately in this situation, they tooketh their own chance of winning away, it seems like. Even Weibo Gaming, number 6, Baron Nashor, able to help finish off the Wukong there. And, you know, low-key, I thought the Zahen at the end here might win this. You know, I've seen some things. It is season 16, but they did kite him out really well. And I think it was just the wrong look there. Another fight.
Now we get right back to action here with the dragon spawning in 7 seconds. Bin gets deleted, and Zika goes forward. Public Execution burning the spell shield on Viper, but not landing the knockup. It is overall a 1-for-0 in favor of Weibo, but remember that this dragon will be the soul if they pick it up, and BLG not even bothering to contest. They're looking for objectives instead. They'll be able to get this tier 2 tower in the mid lane, but it'll come at the cost of a big mountain soul for Weibo.
Yeah, and this is all off of the back of that Baron play. I know that it looks really intimidating to just try flipping the Baron, but Grapes, it was down to under 3,000 HP. Smite does 1,400 damage this patch. All they had to do was click the Baron for like an additional second and smite it away. It would have been perhaps a 50-50, but I think that that look would have been so much more realistic than the fight approach that they did go for. I mean, obviously Knight did execute the fight, but sometimes you just have to have the courage, the gusto to just flip the whole game. They didn't have that confidence, and now it's going to cost them a mountain soul, and that means their chances of winning this game are slim to none.
An uncharacteristically tough game for Knight. His first game with this new BLG squad. They played in the Demacia Cup with YXL instead. Now with, of course, this superstar player that we've hyped up so much over the years on BLG. They are struggling, at least in their opening game of the 2026 season. Weibo coming off of a big momentum boost with a win over IG last night, looking poised to finish off game number 1 if they're able to put off the finishing touches in this game. They have themselves the Mountain Soul, have Baron for another 20 seconds, but aren't going to be able to get too much more after it. They'll likely come down to another big fight around the Purple Worm.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how else to explain it other than this is just typical for a new roster that hasn't fully gelled together before. I mean, I just think a lot of the mistakes have just been so random and so arbitrary. They're just not playing very well.
Viper.
And Viper almost gets completely one-tapped, forcing to flash away from Xiaohu there. You can realize just how difficult it is for him to navigate this situation. And, you know, it's really tough here because even Knight doesn't have, like, any damage items. He's got a Rylai's and a Zhonya's, so I mean, he can survive and he can be annoying, but then he can just do that and just miss everybody once again, Grapes. That's the third.
Dash away. Elk emotes at his former teammate. He knows that he wanted that one bad, but not going to happen as Knight comes out fruitless once more.
Yeah, I mean, you want to be missing a Azir ult where you're trading ult for flash, but Grapes, that was the third Azir ult of the game that just did nothing. And here we go, we got another look. Zika doesn't get anything from that blast cone, thankfully for BLG. But yeah, I mean, the Knight Azir is just not it, Grapes. It's just not it. We need to see better performances. Now Viper has no flash. Knight has probably no confidence left. I mean, how could you? And Xiaohu and Weibo were even emoting on them as Elk this game. He's got 4 items, and he's about to complete a GA as this Yunara with a 3,000 gold lead. How on earth are you ever going to handle this if you're BLG?
Yeah, remember, he's going to have an extra item slot afterwards because of the new quests. A lot of snowballing potential available in the bottom lane. Might not be the strongest earlier on, but once you get to this stage in the game, Fulls, especially as a Yunara up against a Lethality Varus, this is where Elk and the AD carry position in general really is able to shine with some of these crit changes, and of course, just the fact that Elk is still one of the best AD carries that we have here in the LPL, certainly showing it here against the man that replaced him in Viper.
Yeah, this, as you said, is just the total stage of the game where the 80 carries are meant to shine. That extra inventory slot is doing absolutely nothing right now for Viper, whereas it's putting in absolute work for the side of Elk. You know, he gets those really valuable components, mind you, each worth over 1,000 gold. And he's going to have that GA. His whole team, frankly, is just up in items, up in usefulness. They have got a Mountain Soul. I mean, how are you doing this damage to them? Look how big these Mountain Soul shields are, man. I mean, this is just so extremely difficult to navigate as BLG. There's a reason Mountain Soul has a 90% win rate. So, I mean, they're down 6k, they're down to Mountain Soul. At this point, you're preying on some kind of a Baron Smite Steal, an Elder Smite Steal. You need a miracle at this point if you're a Bilibili.
Yeah, I think specifically the Elder would help a lot, just in terms of getting over the hump of the extra damage that Mountain Soul shield currently provides. Who's going to be able to do that damage, though? I mean, it's not Viper at this stage in the game. He's playing Poke Varus. Will it be Knight? We'll see here as the fight already has broken out. Depth Charge lands onto Zika, who is currently level 19 with that upgraded top lane quest. Not able to find too much more than about half of the Mbetsa's HP bar, though. The Baron is about to spawn in 5 seconds. Zika is going to head back to base. He has an Unleashed teleport at his disposal. But BLG might have to go for broke in a situation
look
like
at this TP spot.
With Jiejie controlling so much of this space. He finds the Cataclysm on a Viper and takes the Varus down instantly. And Zika comes right back into the fight. Oh, the two-man pop blossom from Erha. And that's curtains of game number 1. Weibo absolutely destroy BLG in their grand return to the 2026 stage. 21-9. They have a soul on top of it. And off the back of against his former team, you said he was going to try to come in with a little bit more firepower, and he certainly delivered in this one.
Oh, he totally delivered. He over-delivered at that. He overperformed. He did everything that they needed from him and more that game. That was just so well played. And Weibo Gaming stocks are on the rise. First, they take the first series of the LPL regular season. Now they're poised to take Bilibili, who, as you mentioned, as everyone's been thinking, is probably like the team to beat alongside AL, and Weibo is kind of stomping them, to be honest. I mean, sure, it is Bilibili's first game together as the full 5 roster, but that game was probably not even close, man. There was like some moments where it was back and forth a little bit, but I'm trying to think back. It was the Baron play. It really was. They could have just gone for the Baron flip. They could have played that so differently. But instead, Knight, he goes in. He presses all of his buttons.
After that first game, I don't know. There's still a lot of League of Legends to play again. If you're making conversations and debates like, oh, BLG are cooked after this first game, I don't want to hear any of it, but we can celebrate what Weibo have been able to accomplish, at least so far in this series. It was a very convincing win. We'll see what BLG can do, maybe in slightly different positions. I will say, thought it was slightly odd to put Viper in his first game back in the LPL on a bit more of a utility-focused champion on this Poke Varus. Normally you think of him as the Aphelios guy, the high DPS guy. Maybe we'll see a little bit more of that later on in this best of 3. Maybe BLG just limit testing a little bit to start things off. But overall, Weibo really coming to play. And this is going to be a team that will contend in the LPL if they continue to play the way that they played here today.
Right, so I wouldn't worry too much, but I would worry a little bit if I was a BLG fan, because of course you can always say this was their first game together, their first official game together as a team, and you can almost always use that as a valid excuse for, you know, we're not quite, you know, gelling or synergizing perfectly just yet. We need a bit more time, a bit more practice. That's pretty standard, and you know, of course, that could be at fault for some of these mistakes here, and why this post-game, you know, review is just so one-sided. But yeah, again, this mistake is just so costly right here. We see Viper getting literally killed by 2 tower shots. It's just crazy what's going on here. And, you know, I think they're just a bit underprepared, a bit inexperienced with the new patch. You know, there's a lot to adjust to, and again, a lot to adjust to as a new team here, bringing in Viper. You know, you can only wonder what it might have looked like if Viper was on Weibo and Elk was still on BLG. Perhaps BLG would have won.
I don't want to go too far there.
Yeah.
You know, we'll see how exactly the rest of this plays out. But again, I always love these games where it's a player that feels like they are undeservedly kicked from a team. They come out, try to get their revenge. We've seen it in this story time and time again. You know, double lift back against CLG when he was kicked from them maybe 10 years ago at this point. Now we're getting a similar situation here for a player like Elk, who really made his career with BLG, being a part of all of these exceptional teams that went on these incredible runs internationally. Just kind of pushed to the curb for a player like Elk, obviously, or sorry, for a player like Viper. He certainly found a great home with Weibo, and he wants to prove that maybe BLG made a mistake.
Yeah, and I kid thinking that, obviously Elk had a really good performance, but again, it's just one game, guys. It's literally just one game. Some League of Legends games just look super ugly, but that doesn't mean that your team is that bad. It just means sometimes you just weren't ready on the day. You can just have a bad day. It happens. Again, it's the first game together. I would not be surprised if throughout the remainder of this regular season, we get to see the rest of this Ascend group, which is going to be very cinematic, might I add. And they're going to get to play against some of these best teams. They're going to get to practice properly, and I would not be surprised if Viper does eventually get to prove why he did come into this spot. But at least for tonight, it seems that Elk, as of right now, has all the momentum behind him and is really driving that narrative home of why on earth would you replace me?
Now, of course, still has to, job's not finished, right? Got to win the series.
Not finished.
Got to get 2 of the 3 games, and BLG still have the opportunity to do that. What would you like to see differently from them? Was it a draft situation? Is it just players underperforming? We were mentioning Knight. Is that all that it has to be? Just a little bit of a better performance overall from these players?
Yeah, so I think you touched on both of the points that I had, which was, first of all, I do think we want to see Viper on a bit more of one of those DPM champs, one of those champs where it's all about just completely clicking your heart out, whether it's the Aphelios or the Yunara or even the Sivir, a champion who can just have all the power in the world with an infinity edge and just take over the fight, and less of a utility champ like the Varus. And then with our GOAT, the 6-time LPL champ in Knight, we would like to see him on one of his more prominent champs, probably just literally any other champ in the game. I don't know what it is with Knight and Azir. I mean, I don't want to speculate. This is pretty random, but maybe it's because he's left-handed or something. I don't know, man. But just for some reason, he can't play the Azir the way everyone else can. I mean, I'm just saying, man. That's all I'm seeing out here. I guarantee you, if you get him on one of his comfort picks, give him the Syndra, give him the Ahri, give him a counter pick such as an Akali, he's going to carry, man. He's Knight, he's him, and that's what we need. We need Viper on a better champ. We need Knight on a better champ. If we have that, then I think that we're going to have ourselves a 3-game series.
It's an interesting note you bring up. I mean, I didn't even really notice this, but throughout Knight's career, 66.3% win rate. He's won a lot of games. He's won a lot of splits. He's won a lot of titles. 15-17 on Azir, one of the few champions that has a sub 50% win rate for him.
Yep.
Gonna have to go back to the drawing board here. If you are BLG, of course, still a lot of time left in this season, a lot of time left even in this series. Will they be able to force that decisive Game 3, or will Weibo end up dominating again en route to a 2-0 start to the 2026 season? We'll find out in just a few short minutes as we head towards this short break. Be right back with Game 2 here on LPL.